Picture this. A 21-year-old walks onto the most famous tennis court on the planet. Half the stadium does not even know how to pronounce her name. 10 days later, that same stadium is on its feet. Flags are waving that nobody remembered packing. Grown men are checking their phones at 3 in the morning back home just to watch a highlight reel on repeat. What happened in between was not just a tennis story. It was the kind of story that makes you feel like you are watching history get rewritten in real time. And if you think you know how it ends, you do not. Not yet. The twist here is not the win. It is what came after the loss. Let us rewind 8 days before that silence fell over center court. Nobody was circling the name Alex Eala on their bracket. She was a footnote, a nice mention for round 1 or maybe round 2 if she got lucky, then quietly gone and forgotten by the time the second week started. That was the plan everyone else had written for her. She just never signed off on it. The entire tennis world assumed she was just happy to be there. They thought the grand stage of Wimbledon would be too heavy for her shoulders. But to understand why a loss eventually turned her into an icon, we have to look at the impossible wall she had just destroyed. We have to look at the absolute miracle that set the stage for her darkest hour. Alex did not grow up in million-dollar academies with perfectly manicured grass courts waiting for her every morning. She grew up in the Philippines on hard courts that were not always full size. Sometimes she had to share that space with completely different sports entirely. She comes from a country where the raw talent for this game has always massively outpaced the physical infrastructure built to support it. Every step she took to get to London was a battle against the odds. So when she finally stepped onto grass this green and this historic, nobody knew what nerves like that would do to a player like her. The experts assumed she would crumble under the bright lights. Then they found out her first real test was not some unranked journeywoman. It was Iga Swiatek, the defending champion, a player who does not just beat people, but dismantles them methodically like she is checking boxes on a daily task list. For a set and a half, that is exactly what it looked like happening again. The champion was cruising. The young challenger was struggling to keep up with the overwhelming pace. And then somewhere in the middle of that second set, something shifted. It shifted so quietly that even the veteran commentators almost missed it. Watch her eyes in that specific stretch of the match. They never left the baseline. Not once did she look up at the massive crowd. Not once was she rattled by the legendary name printed across the net like a warning label. That small detail meant absolutely everything. Her swings got bigger. Her footwork got earlier. There was nothing loud about it. There was no dramatic screaming. Just enough focus, point after point, until the wall she was supposed to run into simply was not there anymore. The final point of the match arrived. A powerful return sails long, and for 1 full second, nothing happens. There is no sound and no movement. Just 15,000 people forgetting how to breathe at exactly the same time. Then the noise arrives, and it does not stop. A total unknown just beat a legend. By sunrise, this was not a tennis score anymore. It was every front page in the Philippines. Office workers were setting alarms 2 hours early just to catch replays before their shift started. Students with exams in the morning did not care about sleep. Nobody was sleeping through this historic moment. The streets of Manila were buzzing with a strange new energy. People who had never watched a tennis match in their entire lives were suddenly experts on forehand techniques. The name Alex Eala became a sudden global sensation overnight. She was the perfect underdog. She smiled at the right times, and she played with a fearless joy that infected everyone watching. The media loved her. The fans adored her. The tournament organizers could not have asked for a better narrative to boost their second-week ratings. Every single camera lens in London suddenly pointed directly at her practice courts. But professional tennis is a brutal machine. It does not care about your beautiful narrative. It does not care that millions of people are praying for you to win. The machine only cares about who is standing across the net, and the high of a massive upset often blinds players to the reality of the very next round. You feel completely invincible after taking down a giant. You feel like the entire universe is aligning perfectly for your ultimate victory. But this is exactly where things take a dark turn. The fairy tale was flawless up to this exact second. To see how one bitter grudge can turn a beautiful dream into an absolute nightmare on a grass court, join our community by subscribing right now. We are about to step into a brutal match that was never supposed to happen. Waiting for her in the fourth round was Jasmine Paolini, and Jasmine was hiding a secret that would change everything. The euphoria from that earth-shattering victory over Swiatek was intoxicating. The entire world was ready to crown a new queen of tennis, but reality has a brutal way of reasserting itself in professional sports. That reality wore the calm face of Jasmine Paolini. This was not just another random opponent in the draw. Paolini understood the delicate and slippery nuances of grass courts better than almost anyone left in the entire tournament. She was a Wimbledon finalist just 2 years earlier. Her specific style of play was flat. It was fast. It was brutally efficient on exactly this kind of low-bouncing surface. Most professional players simply tolerate grass for a few weeks a year. Paolini was seemingly built specifically for it. But there was something else entirely hanging over this matchup today, a buried and bitter history that the casual fan completely missed. The kind of deep history that does not show up in the flashy tournament highlight reels. It sits quietly in the dark back of a competitor mind for months on end. Let us go all the way back to February. The setting was a blazing hot hard court in Dubai. Alex and Paolini faced off and it was not even remotely close. Alex dominated her completely from start to finish. She embarrassed her on a massive global stage. Paolini had carried the bitter and acidic taste of that specific loss for 5 full months. She practiced through the spring, waiting in silence for exactly the kind of massive stage where she could answer it properly. When the Wimbledon draw paired them together in the fourth round, this stopped being a nice, heartwarming story about a young underdog. It became something much sharper. It became personal. It was strictly unfinished business. Walking out onto the legendary center court, the atmosphere was entirely different than the previous round. The crowd was not settling in politely the way proper British fourth-round crowds usually do. This crowd was absolutely deafening before a single neon yellow tennis ball had even been struck. They were buzzing with the chaotic sound of people who already believed they were about to witness something historically significant. That kind of heavy expectation in a closed stadium actually changes the physical air pressure. You can feel it beating in your chest before anything even happens. Alex walked out and glanced up at the packed stands. She saw hundreds of flags that had not existed there a week earlier. Paolini did not look at the crowd once. Not a single solitary glance. She stared straight ahead with the ice-cold focus of a seasoned assassin. The first point of the match immediately set a dangerous tone. A heavy serve from Alex kicks out wide. Paolini barely gets her racket strings on it. The roaring cheer that follows from the wild crowd sounds like championship point already. It was way too early and way too loud. The adoration from the stands was almost suffocating. For a brief shining moment, it feels like the beautiful fairy tale is just going to keep writing itself effortlessly. But it absolutely does not. 2 games later, the tension mounts. Alex steps up to a routine ball and nets a basic forehand. It was the exact kind of easy shot she could probably make blindfolded on a very bad day. The overwhelming pressure was clearly mounting. Paolini holds her powerful serve. Then she aggressively holds again. Somewhere in that specific stretch, without anyone quite noticing the exact minute it happened, this stopped being a joyful coronation. It became a violent and gritty street fight. The match momentum keeps switching hands wildly like a card trick nobody can follow. Alex was easily winning the hearts of the crowd. Paolini was clinically winning the actual games. That massive yawning gap between public adoration and actual cruel scoreboard pressure is exactly where Grand Slam matches like this get decided. The rallies stretched longer and longer. 10 punishing shots back and forth. 12 agonizing shots. Neither elite woman was giving an inch of territory. Then the brutal and calculated efficiency of Paolini started to completely take over the afternoon. She was a relentless machine, returning every single ball with vicious, deep intent. Alex started desperately pressing. She tried to hit tiny lines that were simply not there anymore. The massive crowd tried to lift her up with their voices, but the loud cheers only seemed to make the racket much heavier in her young hands. The first set rapidly slips away. Paolini closes it out 6-4 with a chilling and terrifying composure that makes the entire chaotic stretch look almost effortless. At the mandatory changeover, Alex sits down heavily. She is staring deeply into her racket strings like the magical answer might be hiding somewhere inside them. For the very first time in the entire historic tournament, a real and terrifying question hangs over that legendary stadium. It is heavy enough that you can almost hear it echoing off the green walls. Is this the exact moment where the magical underdog story finally ends? She is sitting there in that wooden chair totally alone in front of millions of people watching globally. The sudden silence of the local crowd was completely deafening. They were terrified that the impossible dream was already over. She does not know it yet while sitting there breathing heavily. But the next four critical games are about to completely flip that terrifying question upside down. Here is a crucial hidden detail that almost nobody watching remembered in that dark and desperate moment. Earlier in this exact same tournament, Alex had already survived a brutal psychological test. In a quiet match, most people outside her own home country never even saw she had already come back from a setdown. She had stared dark defeat right in the face and absolutely refused to blink. Nobody was talking about that quiet opening match anymore. Not after the Swiatek miracle stole every single sports headline on Earth. But it is exactly why her own dedicated coaching box never once looked panicked. Even as the giant scoreboard screamed that they should be terrified, they remained completely and utterly calm. They intimately knew what she was capable of doing when backed into a dangerous corner. She walks back out onto the worn grass for the second set like a different competitor entirely. She is not playing reckless, desperate tennis. She is playing looser and freer tennis. The suffocating fear is suddenly completely gone. She makes a massive and brilliant tactical adjustment that completely changes the geometric shape of the court. She starts stepping aggressively inside the baseline on the second serve of Paolini. She is actively stealing away precious time before Paolini can use it against her. This is a massive professional risk. If you misjudge the unpredictable grass bounce by a fraction of an inch, you lose the point instantly and look foolish. But she does not hesitate for a second. She violently forces Paolini to rush her swings. She aggressively suffocates the available space on the entire court. The stadium crowd carefully and quietly rebuilds its broken hope. They are excited again, but almost afraid to believe too soon. They are leaning far forward in their expensive seats because they simply cannot help it. Alex holds her crucial serve at love. The entire emotional rhythm of the match resets in one perfect fast hold just like that. Deep into the very next service game of Paolini, three massive flat returns land, deeper than anything Alex had attempted all match. The third one is completely flat and blistering right down the middle line. It flies past a stunned Paolini before she has even finished her initial split step. The dangerous tactical shift is working flawlessly. Have you ever seen a young player completely rewrite their entire game plan in the middle of a major Grand Slam match like this before? Tell me what you genuinely think about this insane strategic pivot down in the comments, because this elite level of tennis IQ is absolutely blowing my mind right now. Let us see exactly how a veteran like Paolini handles this pure, sudden chaos. The physical tension on the court reaches a dangerous boiling point. The score is tied at deuce. Then it is deuce again. The players are locked in a brutal physical and mental exchange. Every single heavy shot feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds. Heavy breathing is picked up by the court microphones. A random let chord bounces wildly in favor of Alex. It is pure, unadulterated luck. The kind of completely random luck that either breaks a tight match wide open or gets wasted completely depending on what happens in the next 3 frantic seconds. She has zero hesitation. She steps in violently and rips a massive cross-court forehand winner. She breaks the veteran's serve. This time, the loud noise from the crowd is not just a joyful celebration. It is pure, exhausting relief. It is a completely different sound entirely. It is the sound of an entire historic building finally exhaling all at once. That single, powerful break should have settled things down immediately. It absolutely does not. Not immediately, anyway. Serving to consolidate the new lead, Alex nervously drops to a dangerous deficit. 15-30? This is exactly the kind of terrifying, fragile moment where a hard-fought comeback quietly slips right through your fingers if you are not extremely careful. The heavy pressure returns instantly to her side of the net, but it does not slip this time. 2 clean and powerful first serves save the day. A sensational forehand winner seals the critical hold of serve. Somewhere down in the front row stands a small, dedicated cluster of Filipino fans who flew in on almost no notice just for this. They are filming the match with their hands shaking way too hard to even hold the phone camera steady. Paolini digs in her heels anyway. She absolutely refuses to make any of this easy for the young star. She is a proud warrior in her own right. She trades solid holds right back. But something fundamental and permanent has shifted for good now. The match momentum completely belongs to Alex. She is visibly lighter on her feet. She is much quicker to the bouncing tennis ball. She is absolutely certain this set is not getting away from her twice. She earns a critical set point on her own serve. She hits a vicious, wide serve that pulls Paolini off the court. A weak, short reply floats back over the net. She lines up a clean forehand and rockets it into the wide-open court. The second set officially goes to Alex with a score of 6-4. The match is completely level again. Somewhere in that massive, sweating crowd, a flag gets raised so high the person holding it nearly loses their balance completely. But is this sudden surge of adrenaline enough to carry her through a brutal deciding third set against a player who has survived this exact nightmare before? That should be the exact moment you finally exhale. Right. That should be the perfect turning point where the underdog story finishes writing itself exactly the way everyone in that stadium wanted it to. But professional tennis truly does not care what you want. The deciding third set that followed felt like something else entirely. It was heavier, it was tighter. Every single point carried a suffocating weight that the first two sets simply did not have. Here is the crucial detail nobody mentions enough about this specific matchup. Jasmine Paolini had already lived through a brutal deciding set on this exact court. She did it during her own magical run to a Wimbledon final 2 years earlier. Alex had not. She had never been here at this elite level. She had never played with this much historic pressure riding on every single swing of her racket. She kept swinging anyway. She used the exact same fearless aggression that had taken down a Grand Slam champion just days earlier. But Paolini is a master of adaptation. She started reading the specific geometric patterns a half step earlier now. She was anticipating the devastating cross-court forehand of Alex before the ball even left the strings. That one small veteran adjustment changed absolutely everything about the match. We arrive midway through the final set. It is a service game that felt like its own separate hour. It stretched out agonizingly across an entire stadium holding its breath. The score is 3-4. Paolini finally gets the opening she has been relentlessly hunting since the first point of the match. Two absolutely impossible defensive retrievals keep the point alive against all logical odds. The rally stretches past 15 punishing shots. Both players are refusing to blink. Their lungs are burning, their legs are heavy, and then one single backhand from Alex clips the white net tape. The ball hangs in the air for a fraction of a second. It falls on the wrong side. Break. This is the part that should surprise you the most. Center court does not turn against her. It goes completely quiet instead. It is that specific and heavy quiet of thousands of people silently willing one young player to find something extra. They wanted her to pull a miracle from anywhere. For a few incredible games, it actually looks like she might do exactly that. She faces more breakpoints and saves them with two fearless first serves that simply should not have landed. But they did. She chases down heavy balls that should have been clean winners, and somehow desperately drags them back into play. She is still smiling between points. She is completely exhausted, but she is still not done. At least not yet. That immense fighting spirit should have carried this all the way to a final tiebreak. It almost does. She attacks every single return when Paolini serves for the match at 5-3. She absolutely refuses to give away one single free point. She fights for every physical inch of that grass court like the giant scoreboard has not already made its cruel decision. But Paolini has done exactly this before on courts exactly like this one. She closes it out the way only players who have actually reached a Wimbledon final know how to close a massive match. One clean heavy serve, one final punishing forehand. The final score is 6-4 and 4-6 and 6-3. 2.5 hours of the most gripping tennis this entire tournament produced is suddenly over. Here is what you absolutely need to understand about what happens next. It is the part almost nobody ever expects from a young player. She does not collapse on the grass. She does not cry. She walks straight to the net with her head held incredibly high. She shares a warm and genuinely respectful embrace with the veteran woman who just brutally ended her magical run. And then something incredible happens. The entire stadium rises to its feet. They are not standing for a champion lifting a gold trophy. They are standing for a 21-year-old who spent 2 weeks completely rewriting what millions of people believed was even physically possible for her. She leaves London as the first tennis player from her country to ever reach the fourth round of Wimbledon. That is a historic record that simply did not exist 2 weeks earlier. Now it permanently carries her name. Short clips of her massive win against Swiatek were already racking up millions of views before she had even left the physical grounds that evening. Footage of her fighting back to level the match against Paolini spread just as fast across the globe. This was undeniable proof that somewhere in the middle of that second week, this had stopped being just a sports story. Here is the final twist. The twist that actually matters so much more than the final scoreline. The cold scoreboard says she lost the match. But if you watch those 2.5 hours again, you will see something completely different. You will see a player who completely refused to be intimidated by a legendary name standing across the net. You will see a warrior who clawed back from a terrifying set, down against an opponent with real personal motivation for dark revenge. You will see a hero who pushed a deciding set all the way to the absolute physical limit, while an entire proud country stayed up past midnight just to watch her do it. Her coach did not say much afterward. He just stood quietly near the dark tunnel with his arms crossed. He watched her walk off the court with a look of pure and immense pride. He knew exactly what this meant. He knew the actual value of this tournament was not the ranking points updated the following week. The real value was the powerful seed of belief she had just violently planted into the hearts of a million young kids watching back home. 2 weeks earlier, nobody standing across the net from her would have thought twice about her name. That is no longer true. And it changed in front of the entire sporting world, not on some forgotten outer practice court. It happened on center court itself. She did it twice. She did it against a defending Grand Slam champion and then against a former finalist in front of flashing cameras that had barely learned how to pronounce her name correctly before that first point. Results fade incredibly fast in professional tennis. That is just the brutal truth of this grueling sport. Next month always brings new tournaments and new flashy headlines. But some unique results carry massive weight regardless of what comes next. Because this beautiful run never measured a ranking or a bracket position. It measured pure belief. She walked down that dark tunnel and out of the loud noise. Somewhere behind her, center court was already resetting itself for whatever match came next. The tennis world always moves on without ever looking back. Except this time, it will not be forgotten quite so easily. Everyone in that building now has a powerful name they simply did not know 2 weeks earlier. She is the undeniable future of this sport. But how exactly will she use this massive heartbreak to destroy the rest of the tour next season? To find out the exact answer and follow her complete revenge tour, make sure you subscribe right now. We are going to track every single step of her incredible underdog journey, and you will not want to miss what happens next.